Wasn't sure.
It's almost. Okay. Okay, we're ready on our end. Got everything ready.
Okay, then let's call this meeting to order at, I don't have a clock, 5 o'clock, 5:05. Marilyn,
501. 501,
5:01.
right.
Okay, Marilyn,
Okay. Ms. Nichols, Mr. Talbot, Mr. Walsh, all present. You have a quorum.
present, thank you. I'm going to ask that we dispense with the pledge. I'd like to make sure that we conclude this meeting by 6 o'clock, as I have another meeting at 6. So we've got a few things to discuss, and the one that is going to may take the most questions and the most time is the revisions for the pay grades. And Lou has sent us, I don't know if you, Don and Peter, have had an opportunity to see what came through this afternoon. Did you get the email this afternoon?
I got it. I haven't read it all.
Okay, so Lou, perhaps, I think this probably will be an item for us to discuss and not make a conclusion this evening, perhaps. But if you have enough questions, but if we can put it up on the screen, it will be there. And Lou, I would ask you to walk us through. Every year we have, yeah, okay. I'll let you.
Hmm,
Can we turn that around? I can't.
that's what I'm trying to do.
I'm trying to see if I can turn it around.
Well, Sylvia, while she's working that, I remember the same thing that was in the memo. I remember that we talked about increasing regular basis
Right.
to adjust for CPI.
Mhm.
So in fact, I think I was the one that raised it. That's
I think you
maybe
were.
what I remember.
And so Lou has provided us with some proposed changes for our discussion, basically. And so there's some charts here that would be helpful to be able to see. We
Yeah.
have not changed those maximums and minimums since 2019, I believe, and in some cases, the minimums have not been adjusted since 2017. So that's what we're looking to decide how to increase them.
I'm gonna try something else.
This is adjusting, John, you've done this before, haven't you? This last year when we did this,
Yes.
well, we didn't actually do it, but
No, I know what you're trying to
the
do.
maximum and the minimum for the pay grades. And they're
Yeah.
the pay grades that are the E's and the N's from E1 to E5 and from N1 to N5.
Okay.
Got it? And
There we go.
good, perfect. Okay. So Lou, if you want to walk us through this, it probably be best for you to do that for us.
No, I think Lou's having trouble. Are you having trouble getting in?
Yeah.
I
was
keep
getting it
I keep
off.
admitting you.
Yeah, but it keeps, I can't launch my video and my audio.
Will you want to come in here?
Yeah, I mean, if that works, or else.
Isn't
You know
that wonderful?
Yeah, here.
Okay.
We're tag teaming.
We're tagging.
So-
Yeah.
Okay, so they're ready for you to go through this.
Yeah, I think Sylvia, I heard it, but I couldn't get on. We hadn't done this since August of 19, and if you recall back then, we had done a salary survey, and Sean and I recollect, and I think Sylvia said he talked to you, that when we did it in August of 19, we said that going forward, we would adjust the pay scales by the CPI. So in the memo I sent to Sean back in February, the CPI for the first 12 months was 1.1. For the next period, it was 4.4. And currently, for the period since the August, it's pacing at 6.5. So after your last meeting, Arnett said that you wanted to see numbers. So what you've got on the left side is the current plan that was adopted in August of 19. And on the right side, it shows the cumulative effect of adding 1.4, 1.1, 4.4, and 6.5 to the minimums and maximums. Now, obviously, if when we get to June, 6.5 is another number, then we'll do 1144 and whatever the 12-month number is on June 30th. But if it kept pace, those would be the numbers. And again, the minimums had not been increased since 17. So while we were doing it, we took the liberty of applying the CPI across the minimums and maximums.
I'm sorry, it's me. And now I'm going. Hold on a second.
We're all having technical
So,
issues.
can I just ask a question? The numbers on the left were done in 2019, the numbers on the right you just did.
Right.
So the minimum you said is like, from what I can see is 1.1% from August 2018 to 2020, and then 4.4%. Is that based on the contract rates? Is that what we're looking at, or just CPI?
No, they're CPI numbers. The
Okay.
1.1 and the 4.4 were the 12 months from August of 19 to August 20, then August 20 to August 21. And then we applied the current number, which is 6.5. But again, that number could be 4.5 or 6.2. So we carried out the 3 CPI applications to the numbers so you could see what they are, but the actual number will be wherever we are after the next full 12-month period.
Questions. So we have done this. How many people in each of these categories are close to the maximum? How's this going to affect the budget overall? Have we planned for that in our current budget projections for next?
Yeah, I mean, the ranges are just ranges. They're not salaries.
Right.
So,
I understand
so
that.
whoever's salary is what their number is, and that's what's in the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what it does
Even if
is
they're below the minimum?
What's that?
Even if they're below the minimum?
I went back. No one's going to be below the minimum in any of the categories. I went
Okay.
back. There's one person at the pool that's like rubbing it, and depending on, I think if they get their normal, what they get, it won't be an issue.
Based on the ones you're presenting us, these are based on the
Right,
numbers.
right.
Right.
And-
Okay.
And again, if the CPI for this next 12 months is less, the minimums and all the numbers will go down.
Okay. Question, Peter? No?
So the we're applying in between the two is 4.4. Is that correct then?
The second year was 4.4. It was, we did 1.1, we did 4.4 on top of that. And for the purposes of giving you a 3-year, we used the current number, which is 6.5. Or the last number that we got from the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
So you've raised maximums in most cases, $10,000 or $11,000 in the E category. I didn't calculate the ones on the ends, but
Right.
right, yeah.
And realize that everybody who's in E5, the Chiefs, George,
Yep.
Jim, Arnett, me, I think that's everybody.
Mhm.
For the most part, will be well below the maximums. But if we probably don't make the adjustment over the 140, people are going to start to seep over the 140.
Okay. So you guys are the E5s and the E4s are department heads, basically?
The E4s, I'll get it off here. Well, the E4s are department heads. It's Beth Crowley, it's John Golick, it's Michelle, it's Deputy Chief Jortner, and Andrew Martelli. The 3s are the assessor, Gina, Donna in finance, superintendent at the plant, the new town engineer. Actually, the new town engineer is a 4. The building officials a 3, the fire marshal's a 3, and the collector of revenues a 3. The 2s are the deputy library director. And the 1 right now, senior service coordinator and the aquatics director.
Okay.
So when I look at these numbers, it looks like it's roughly 11% increase to the minimum and the maximum. But it shows that we haven't changed the minimum since 2017, but we did change the maximum in 2019. So I would have thought that, you know, the minimum would have had a higher increase from that. Or was there a reason why we didn't change it in 2019?
Peter's been on the committee longer probably than anyone. I think when we've gone back and done minimums and maximums over the years, we've done different things. We've tinkered with different percentages on maximums, and on the minimums for the most part, we never really touched the minimums. It was a matter of.
So you guys want to have a wider range, maybe, is that what you're looking for?
No, I don't think so. I think we were looking for a tighter range, but I think in particular for the E's, we rarely hire at the minimum for a professional exempt employee. So the number is always above the minimum, working closer toward the midpoint than the maximum.
When we did it the last time, Don, the council did not have an appetite to raise the minimums. So what we did was we did raise on the max in 2019, but the minimum stayed the same. So that's why you have such wide ranges.
Mhm.
And then the columns on the right are indicating minimum and maximum only increased by the same number as the columns on the left. That's why you're maintaining that fairly wide gap.
Mhm.
That makes sense. I understand why not changing the minimum. I just wasn't sure. I would have thought by changing it this time, it might have been close the gap a little bit more, but we're keeping that gap the same pretty much.
Keeping it the way we had
This
decided in 17, yes.
Applied by the number, the 6544 and the 11.
So do you have an appetite as a committee to find this acceptable to bring forward for the council's approval? Or would you like to see something different?
I think the council will probably want to discuss it a little bit further, so I don't have a problem with bringing it forward. I still may have some more questions. I just have to, I need to delve into it a little bit more.
Well, it's a committee's choice. If you feel that you want more time to be able to make the decision to bring it before the council, we don't need to decide that tonight, but we would have to have another meeting fairly soon to do that. We need to move. Can't let it linger for too long. Peter, what's your pleasure?
I'm okay with discussing this and let's move it to the
Council.
needs to be done.
We seem to be losing you a little bit here and there, and we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
I assume you said that you were okay moving it forward for council discussion.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So then I need somebody to move that forward.
That motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so we've all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to move that as presented to the council for further discussion. Thank you. That's good. Thank you. Now, the next one is the General Services Administrator 1. You have those, you got that in your packet last night. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it at all. General Services, and this was the position that was going to be the floating position that we talked a little bit about before. And the description has been changed. You can see the changes there. I had a couple of questions about mostly about wording and things, and in your essential functions that you have described there, we waver back and forth with the word assists and helps with. It seems to me it should to be consistent. If they're going to assist with meeting prep, and they should be assisting with creating, organizing, and maintaining the files. It's minor correction there. The bigger one for me was this section 9:12. The wording seemed uncomfortable to me, and I thought it might be clearer if that sentence read receives and processes revenue payments made in person, by mail, or online, comma, balances and closes out daily cash register receipts, and scans checks for deposits. Somehow that first sentence didn't seem very clear to me. Just my personal response to that. So I would prefer it to read receives and processes revenue payments in person, but made in person, by mail, or online, and semicolon, balances and closes out daily cash register receipts, semicolon, scans for deposits. Just seems to read easier for me. Other than that, I had no concerns about what was here. I thought it was fairly clear, and it kept it clear without overstating and limiting jobs.
I have one question. It says for under required knowledge, skills, and abilities, you have computer experience required. I'm just wondering if you should kind of make that a little bit more succinct about, you want them to understand Excel or Word, or computer experience required. I mean, do they know how to turn on a computer and look up email, or do you need them to understand Microsoft Office functions? I don't know if this job requires that or not, but I mean, if you might want them to understand Excel or at least Word.
Yeah, some of the other job descriptions have, say, familiarity with Outlook, Excel, Word, whatever. So, that
I think
that
this
could be a
computer
consistent
experience is
change.
just a little too broad.
I agree. And the other question I wanted to understand was the cost of this salary is going to be allocated to what budget line? If they are floating between departments, are we dividing the time in the budget for each department, or where do we charge this cost for this employee?
It's in the general services budget,
Okay. And
which
it's
is where it was when we previously had it.
okay. And it's a full-time position, 30.
35.
Right. Okay. Questions, Peter?
I'm good with the changes that you made too.
Okay.
You have those changes?
Yeah. I'm done.
Okay.
Yep.
Are we good to move that one forward?
I'll make a motion to move that forward.
Second,
Changes.
Aye. Okay. Now we have the second one, which is this is very alliterative, the administrative assessment technician. Okay. It's Department of the Finance. And I had a couple of questions about this. It seemed in a couple of places when I read this, in one line, it said that they were going to be in charge of the motor vehicle recording and all of that. And then the next line, it says that they're identifying and valuing all taxable and non-taxable real estate. And then somewhere else, and I thought I noted it, but I don't see it here. It says only the motor vehicles. And I'm just confused as to it was
Yeah,
all,
it's, you're talking about the one that's numbered that first page, Sylvia. And
Right.
then on the second page, it says assists assessor in valuing all unpriced motor vehicles.
right. But I thought I read somewhere there was a line in there that it was there was something crossed out that said they were not going to be doing something with personal property. Hold on, specs existing. On the first page, essential functions, the second paragraph there said inspects existing real and personal properties. So I guess that means they're not actually going out to inspect those properties. But when you read the sentence at the very beginning, it says participates in the valuation and assessment of the real estate. So I guess I assumed that participating in the valuation and assessment would indicate that they had inspected the properties. Maybe that's where I felt that was a little confusing, but that's maybe me.
Yeah, I think the intent is that the assessor still is the one who goes out and
Always out. Okay.
inspects. I don't think this person is expected to go.
Okay.
Inspect.
They wouldn't be certified.
Right.
Right.
They wouldn't do that.
Mhm.
And there's a spelling area in participates because there's no A in there. And that's the only two things that I had. Anybody else have anything?
Nope, I was good with it.
You were good? Okay,
Yeah, that's
we'll
fine.
move this one forward then. And this, wait a minute, is this a full-time or a part-time? This is
This is full-time.
full-time.
You know, Jim's presented this in the budget as the second, the assessor, this position, and then the technician. Realizing that the skills and abilities of the staffing there allows for that setup as opposed to an assessor, a deputy, and a technician.
Okay, that's fine. So, go ahead.
Lou, am I correct in that this is going down then a level? It's going from a 9 to an 8?
Oh, the deputy assessor position is a 9. Currently, because of the interim status, acting status that Chris had after the previous assessor had passed, we really haven't had a deputy assessor. We've had the deputy assessor acting as the assessor. When Chris was appointed and she discussed her budget with Jim, the administrative assessment technician is a certified position that the Assessors Association recognizes as a position that's less than an assessor. So professionally, this job exists, but is not to the level of, and here would be a 9, a deputy assessor.
Okay,
Okay,
so an 8 is appropriate then.
Yes,
Got it.
okay, and they,
So they don't need real estate appraisal experience for this?
she takes courses. She goes to the UConn's assessor school every summer. But I don't think that she will probably advance to get the certification at the level of that a deputy assessor would
Well,
require.
let's take her out of it, because this should be a generic type of thing.
Right.
Say, and then any person, if she's gone and you're looking for somebody, wouldn't you want somebody with some kind of real estate appraisal experience? Because if the assessor is not there, they have to assume the responsibilities of the assessor, which I think would require real estate assessment, correct?
Well, she's acting in the assessor in the fact that she's the ranking person in the office. But for instance, if there was when Chris was in the interim situation, Chris had her CCMA. So Chris had the ability to sign the grand list. This position wouldn't have the ability to sign the grand list.
Okay, so they don't need to have the real estate appraisal experience at all.
She doesn't have a CCMA, either a 1 or a 2.
No, I understand this person might not, but I'm looking at if you're hiring somebody in the future, is that something that you would want that person to have, even though this person who currently has a position doesn't? I look at this as a generic thing without putting a person on it, because I don't know the person anyway, so, but I'm looking at it as a job description, and if you're hiring somebody for that position, would you want them to have real estate appraisal experience, or is it not necessary because they're going to be doing more automobile assessment?
Yeah, for this position, it's not necessary.
Okay,
But I think in the future, 5 years from now, if you went out and filled this job and someone came with the certification, that would be better. But I mean, frankly, in this market, there's really a dearth of certified assessors, collectors. It's, we're lucky that we have the staff we have.
I see in this desired knowledge, there is a sentence that says that the appointed employee shall have 5 years to obtain their AAT designation, which is an Administrative Assessment Technician designation.
Right.
What happens if they get to 5 years and they haven't obtained that? Did they get?
This person already is there, but in the future, you would have to have it. I mean,
Okay.
presumably, if this person left, someone else came in, they would be required to get it in
Have it to begin with.
in
Okay,
that period of time, yeah.
all right. Yeah, and that follows with that same sentence that we asked to be added was knowledge of computer spreadsheets and Microsoft Windows and Munis and all of that that's the kind of thing we wanted to add to the previous one to make
Right.
it clear. Okay. Okay, are we content to move this one forward?
She goes
Second.
closest to where.
In
she
favor?
is, more than
Aye.
50% of what she's making. So it,
Yeah.
this number reflects hope.
Now, the second position in this office is not an administrative assessment technician, just simply an assessment technician. And it appears to me that you have eliminated some of the things that you have inserted into the administrative technician job description, but essentially kept this the same with just minimal changes to verbiage. Is that correct?
Yeah, the assessment technician, currently, there's a 35-hour technician, and there was a part-time assessment technician that we've had, an issue filling. But what this does, this reflects the change in the other position, leaving this as the other full-time position in the department with, noting that the changes that were made in the other position obviously reflect this position.
If you had a chance to look at this, are you both okay with that?
Yeah,
Peter?
Yes.
you're okay with that?
I would just do again to change the bottom about the knowledge of computer systems, and I try to be consistent with that kind of stuff. Just making sure that all those things, I mean, if you want them to understand Microsoft Office, that should be pretty clear in there.
I agree with that. It should be consistent across the board, it seems to me. Okay, did we all vote for this? Did somebody, I forget, did somebody?
Yeah, I think that we did,
Okay, Marilyn, did he move the thing
Yeah,
forward
we moved.
already? Yeah.
No, you have not moved this one yet.
Will you please do that?
Who's doing that? Mr. Walsh, Mr. Talbot?
Go ahead, Mr. Walsh.
okay, so move.
And second.
And all those in favor?
Yep. Aye.
Okay. Hey, we're really doing very well today. Okay.
You're all set. All right.
Okay.
We're not on our own now.
I'm kicking Lou out.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, the last piece we have for discussion, and not for a decision this evening, but one that opens and continues the discussion of the continuing job of the clerk. And I hope that we can come to some conclusion about this, perhaps one more meeting. I think we need time to really think through all of these things, but this proposal has come from staff. And Arnett, I'm going to let you go through it with us. I don't know, Don or Peter, have you had an opportunity to look at it? It just came over our emails at 4:15
Just got to it.
or something. So she's got it up here on the computer. So if you could go through it with us, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, all I've done is glance so far, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know we didn't give you a lot of time, but we do have time to work on this.
Right.
And this is really just a rough draft to give you an idea of what we're thinking. So the introduction, we've got, the town has 19 boards, commissions, and committees, including the council. And we need minutes for all of those. Currently, we use a vendor system, and we've been having difficulty getting clerks. It's been very inconsistent, which it also hasn't given us a real opportunity to train people. I think consistency is an important thread throughout this. So what we would like to do is amend this program and system to hopefully make it a little bit better. So our objectives are, as you can see, to ensure the availability of trained minutes clerks for every public meeting, to establish consistency among the minutes and in procedures and expectations by the clerks and the department heads, staff liaisons, and the officials, to adequately train the clerks to understand not just how to take minutes, but their roles and responsibilities and what we're looking for in terms of summary minutes so they can be consistent. We are looking for accuracy, clarity, and concise minutes. It would also internally, it would streamline, restructure the administration of managing these clerks. It would reduce and stabilize costs, and would also provide us a method for evaluating performance on a regular basis, so we can determine if additional training is necessary or if there's recognition of quality work. So the structure, and this would be the biggest change, the structure we are looking at is to have these clerks be employees rather than volunteers. That would enable us to hopefully increase the number of available clerks, because we would be offering a more consistent program. It definitely will provide for more effective recruitment. It would give us more control and therefore enhance the accountability for quality of work. It would also internally give us more scheduling control and efficient management. Sometimes we're scrambling. Allow for more frequent and effective training opportunities. Definitely provide cost control and reduce net costs. And would ensure consistency in summary minutes, which, as you recall, will be supplemented with audio recordings pursuant to the recording policy that the council enacted last year. So they'd be hired as part-time employees. They would not work more than 15 hours a week in any 1 week. So therefore, there's no benefits, there's no collective bargaining applications, and they would be paid for attendance at meetings and for typing the minutes based upon the hour of the meeting. So if a meeting is an hour, then we would assume an hour for typing the minutes. If a meeting is 2 hours, it would be 2 hours. Obviously, if a meeting's a little shorter, we may have a 1 hour minimum for typing the minutes. That's something that we're working on, but we feel that's a good start. The clerks would be hired under the town standard hiring practices, would allow to a pretty thorough solicitation. We do go pretty wide on this. We'd reach out to a lot of local organizations, and we'd use social media. I think there's some people in this town who would be interested in this. We need to get the word out. We would also perform a brief test, which would include listening to recording and then taking minutes for a meeting. And then we would have the ability to interview people. And we would select up to 12 applicants. I think any more than that would be unwieldy, and I think we'd be incredibly lucky if we found that many. But right now that would be a goal. And then they would be onboarded as part-time employees. We'd love to start it as of July 1st of this year, if we can, and start training. If we can't, obviously we'll work with whatever timetable we have. And we could solicit additional clerks as needed, as we do for any job position. One of the main advantages is going to be training sessions. We would offer paid training sessions in groups or individually. We'll develop a standardized training manual, and the clerks will be required to take 2 hours of the paid training and prior to taking minutes for the meeting. And then their work will be monitored by people who interact with them, department heads, the liaisons, and commission chairs, providing feedback. If someone's struggling or underperforming, we'll provide additional training. And if people are doing an exemplary, exceptional job, then we can look at the hourly pay. We're proposing that the initial scheduling be centralized. Clerks can be given primary assignments, but we'll maintain a pretty tight list for substitutes. So in the frequent event when people can't make a meeting, we have somebody there backup, and we know that with their schedule, they're going to be able to assist. And the general services admin one that you, the job description that you were just looking at a few minutes ago, would be responsible for the management of the schedule, for doing the paperwork and keeping track of the log, and serve as the primary contact. So it would be centralized, and the department heads and staff liaisons would work through that person. And then the clerks would, they'd submit timesheets just as all the other employees do. Timesheets are reviewed and they're signed off on, and they would be entered into the payroll system, which would give us a very easy track. And they'd be paid bi-weekly via electronic deposit, just as the rest of employees are. And at this point, we were expecting the hourly pay be established in the $20 per hour range. That's flexible. We could go down to 18. We could go up to 25, and that's negotiable. The other thing that was added, which you've seen, is the recording policy. So all of these meetings most of these meetings will be recorded. So there will be an audio recording readily available if there are any particular questions that someone might have that go beyond the summary minutes that outline the actual actions taken.
You got it.
Very good.
That's it?
Very good. It was
That's
very
it. That's all I got.
and it was very clear as to what you want, but now it's up to us as the committee to take a look at these.
Absolutely.
Add some comments or comments. It doesn't have to be tonight because we haven't had a chance to really read it,
Sure.
read it again, but and seek input for other things and before we even bring anything like this before the council, which clearly are going to have their own questions. But I think this is a good start to try and organize this clerking process, which has been challenging for the staff to keep everything recorded, but we also have the added ability to have recordings, which is a good thing. And so do you have any responses to this initially? Anything particular stand out to you, or any concerns or suggestions? Or would you hold those comments?
The one, Arnett, if you could bring up the document one more time. I wanted to get a little context around scheduling. You talked about, and all of it makes sense. I was just trying to get a little more, you say primary assignment. So, individual number one would do park and rec, environment, and energy on a monthly basis. That would absolutely keep them under 19 hours. And then they would, for example, be substitute for other boards and commissions, presumably. I guess my concern with the scheduling, and the consistency would be to try to get people that are able to do some of the more technical in planning and zoning, inland wetlands. Those are the ones that come to mind. Can you talk a little bit about that and what your thoughts are?
Sure. I think that's what we were thinking about when we mentioned primary assignments. While it's nice to have everyone cross-trained and have the ability to have people fill in, it's also very advantageous to have someone who understands the language of the commission for which they're clerking, and understands some of the issues that are ongoing. So ideally, we would want to try to have regularly scheduled individuals that has an assignment, let's say for planning and zoning. And then the backup list, we'd indicate, well, we have 6 people who might be available to fill in that night, but these 2 have some experience with land use agencies.
Right.
So we would try to manage their abilities and their level of understanding with the board or commission that they're going to be clerking. Occasionally, we may not be able to do that. And occasionally it's not going to be too much of a problem. I personally filled in as clerk when necessary for several boards, commissions, and committees, retirement board being one. And they get into some they get in-depth into investments and pensions, but for the sake of summary minutes, a lot of that conversation is not necessary to capture, and the highly technical aspect of it is not necessary to capture. It's the action that they're taking and the process that they're following, and then we have the audio. So that gives us a little bit of leeway, but I'd absolutely agree that we need to have some matching with the abilities, with the knowledge.
No, and I think your point is well taken too, that you're right. In doing summary minutes, you don't have to have as much of a technical expertise as you would if you were doing, if there weren't backup recordings and everything else. So.
Right. So.
Yeah, I just had a couple of things. How many do we currently have now?
How many, excuse me?
How many clerks do we currently have? Oh, did we lose her? There.
Okay, I'm back. Whoa, I don't know what happened. Okay, how many clerks do we have? Active. I think we have 4.
Oh, wow, okay.
That includes Marilyn. Is
okay.
80% of our does 80%.
I'm in favor of this because I think the training will help and be more consistent. But the one thing I would say is if they are becoming employees of the town, they should fall under the same requirements of the town with any employee of having a yearly review. And
yes,
to take compensation based on if they're doing a good job or not. I think it really should be the chairs of each committee who they're clerking for should be reviewing them on a yearly basis and treating it just like we would any other employee on that, because I think as you get more experience, you're probably better qualified to do certain things versus the new people. So if you say you're starting at $20 an hour, I mean, somebody with Maryland's experience, we're not going to start her at $20 an hour.
Right.
So I think we really should, if it's becoming, I don't know how much additional cost this is going to be to the town and how it will affect our budgets, but I think it's a good thing. I think we need to, we've been spoiled by people like Maryland. And I think we need to make sure that we have people ready to take over.
The one thing too, and and yeah, Sylvia, you can help my memory on this one. We had talked about doing a joint meeting because there's a piece of this that we had started on in ordinance review about maybe doing a joint personnel ORC meeting. You know, and I think it's great that we're doing this right now and doing the preliminary, but I think maybe for the next one, we could include this on a joint.
I agree. And I honestly was not aware that this was going to be on the budget, on this agenda. It's probably because I wasn't paying attention. I didn't hear it.
We snuck it in last night.
But I agree with you, because I think it takes more eyes than just us. But you put the ordinance, that adds one more set of eyes. But I think it's going to take some time to come up and think through all of the possible ramifications. I think this beginning structure helps us to identify the questions that might come up. Just like you said, I agree with you, the degree of expertise that's required on certain committees is different than others. You know, the institutional knowledge that you have in land use or in other water courses or whatever it is may be different. So I think that's something we should be paying attention to. I think experience plays into the price of the salary that we offer or the hourly wage we offer. And I do think has to be some accountability, and it's sort of in here. It wasn't specified exactly, but that there's a way to review and make sure if everything's sort of consistent in what we expect, then we have a way to measure the performance. So I think that's all of those things are sort of included in this package. However, they're not fleshed out to the degree that we might want to have them. So I agree. Yeah. So we probably will try, and ordinance is crazy with meetings at the moment, right? Aren't you both on ordinance? You've got a lot of things to do, but
between the two committees, it's
right. But we certainly should try and get on that agenda, and I'll talk to David about that. But I think that our goal should be at the beginning of the fiscal year to have some concrete way to move forward with this as of the 1st of July, as if we could. So if we got time to do that.
And I think, Sylvia, too, we could probably do this, do one more discussion session within personnel about this,
right,
to finalize. And, now that we've had a chance to take a look at this proposed draft, and then, do it one more within this group, and then add Mr. Velaber to the, to a joint meeting as we get closer to moving it to the full council.
Okay, that makes sense. I think that does make sense, because as I read this, there's certain things that just keep popping into my head. And as I said to Arnett earlier when I got it, and it's implied, but I wanted to make sure it was implied. When you have independent contractors, they're providing all their materials and their pens and their paper and their, all of that. As a town employee, does the town provide that for them, or how do they accomplish that? And it's certainly implied by the fact that they are a town employee that the town would provide them with the necessary equipment. But if we are requiring a particular second recording or whatever, we need to make sure that we're clear about that they don't have to do that. So yeah, I mean, there are questions that have come up. So I think this is a good beginning, and I think we need to get some input about it and talk about it again. So I would put that on an agenda for another meeting, and hopefully we can do that maybe right after we adopt the budget and we get through all that process. That's another couple of weeks. And by then, likely there will be another personnel issue that will also require us to meet. So that'll give you time to get your ordinance committee meeting for the big issues that are coming up that you got referred to last night. Are you both agree with that? Is that?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay. Now, anything else on any of these topics that anybody wants to bring up? Are we good? Y'all want to go home?
Are you going into executive session?
Nothing for executive session.
Nothing.
No, well, I have a 2-minute thing.
Oh, all right, okay.
I
did
just want to introduce something that Sean will follow up on, but it'll,
Okay,
I'll be.
okay, I'm sorry, I missed that on
All
the.
right, so I'll move that we go in to include the committee, the assistant town manager, Arnett Talbot, and Noel Shepherd.
Okay, thank you for noticing that. I guess I didn't read my,
Okay, it's, you're going in at 5:50.
5:50. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Marilyn.